Yeah, the GOAT. Logo threes are back, y'all. Logo threes are back like they never left. Caitlin Clark doing it to him.
All right, so here's what's starting to come out about what really happened behind closed doors at USA basketball training camp. And it's far more revealing than the polished, carefully worded official messaging ever suggested. According to a reporter named Sabrina, who has since shared detailed behind-the-scenes insight, Caitlin Clark didn't simply attend camp, blend in, and earn her spot the conventional way. She didn't arrive trying to fit neatly into an existing structure or waiting her turn in line.
Caitlin Clark is on fire. Day 3 of Team USA camp. The girl couldn't miss. It was like throwing a rock in the ocean for Caitlin Clark.
Instead, she walked into that gym and fundamentally altered the environment almost immediately. Not with noise, not with bravado, not with ego or theatrics, but with impact. The kind of impact that reshapes hierarchy, attention, and momentum without ever needing to announce itself.
When she was not playing with Aaliyah Boston, some of the bigs didn't know what to do with her passes. Like, there was one time where she passed it to Hamby, and Hamby, like, brought the ball down. It's like, you can't do that. Like, this is not...
You gotta keep it up.
You have to keep it up, right?
Straight up, right.
This matters because this wasn't just any camp. This was a gym full of elite players, women who have lived in high-pressure basketball environments their entire lives. Olympic gold medalists, WNBA All-Stars, franchise cornerstones, players who are used to being the focal point wherever they go. And yet, by Sabrina's account, this particular week became one of the most uncomfortable and tension-filled stretches anyone in that gym had experienced.
Having to see Caitlin, like, go at scouting players who were, you know, instructed to play at a FIBA level of physicality was interesting, considering how long she's been out and the fact that she's still ramping up injury-wise.
Not because of arguments or open conflict, and not because of chaos or dysfunction, but because the game itself began making decisions faster than people were ready to accept.
She was just, like, so happy to be there and, like, was individually, like, telling media members how nice it was just, like, talk to them again and, like, that she was just part of the basketball process.
Clark arrived quietly. No fanfare, no dramatic entrance, no cameras tracking her every step, no visible effort to command the room or assert status. She simply showed up and went to work.
And just fun to, like, see the players in a live game situation again, because you think about, like, Caitlin hasn't played since July 15th, you know?
Yes.
There are 4 sparks of this camp. Their season ended on September 11th, right? So it's been a long time since any of them have really played competitive basketball.
But within minutes of her stepping onto the court, everything shifted. The energy changed in a way that was impossible to miss if you were paying attention.
You also got a quote out of Sue Bird about her being impressed with Caitlin just being engaged while she was out and getting back to being able to play.
Conversations paused when she touched the ball. Drills suddenly felt sharper, more urgent. The established order, built over years of reputations, resumes, and expectations, started to wobble. This wasn't about disrespecting what others had accomplished. It was about something more uncomfortable, the realization that the game was starting to organize itself differently, that possessions flowed more cleanly through her reads, that spacing improved when she ran the offense, that the tempo elevated when she dictated it. By the final day of camp, one player reportedly walked out early, not because of an injury, not because of a roster cut, and not because of any dramatic confrontation, but because it had become clear where the game was going, and it wasn't going through them. That's the detail that's now drawing real attention. Because this wasn't politics. It wasn't favoritism from coaches. It wasn't marketing pressure or media hype influencing decisions behind the scenes. It was basketball selecting its center of gravity in real time. The kind of moment that can't be negotiated or managed away once it starts happening.
A little bit about what Caitlin looked like on the court, how much fun she was having, how important it was. And then someone else, Angel Reese on the other side, talking about Chicago. That was the article I was not expecting.
And that reframes the entire conversation. The question people are asking now isn't whether Caitlin Clark belonged at Team USA camp. That part feels settled. Anyone who watched her command possessions, control pace, and elevate the collective level of play understands that.
Here's that Caitlin Clark is truly back healthy. The three-point shot is back. The logo threes are back. And what I really liked about that second one is that was going right.
The real question is more uncomfortable. Was her dominance actually intimidating to the players around her? Or were they simply unprepared for what her actual day-to-day level looks like up close? There's a massive difference between knowing someone's reputation and experiencing their presence on the floor every possession. Between respecting highlights and having to guard reads that come a half second faster than you're used to. Between seeing talent on film and feeling how little margin for error exists when someone processes the game at that speed. For some players, that realization is energizing. For others, it's destabilizing. And that's what makes this moment so revealing. Because when the game itself starts choosing who it wants to flow through, there's nothing personal about it. But there's also nowhere to hide. You either adjust, adapt, and find your place within that reality, or you're forced to confront the fact that the hierarchy you were comfortable with no longer exists. What happened at that camp wasn't just about one player excelling, it was about a system being exposed in real time. And once that happens, everyone in the gym has to decide how they're going to respond. There's a big difference between being aware of someone's reputation and experiencing their presence on the floor every single possession. Highlights can tell you someone is talented, numbers can tell you they're productive, but neither prepares you for what it feels like when the reads are happening in real time, when the pace suddenly accelerates, and when you realize, almost subconsciously, that the margin for error you've been living with has just disappeared. To understand why this mattered as much as it did, it helps to understand what Team USA training camp is normally supposed to feel like. These camps are typically controlled, professional, almost routine environments. Everything is structured. Players cycle through drills, build chemistry, run systems, and prepare for international competition in a way that feels efficient and predictable. Even with elite talent in the gym, there's usually an unspoken understanding of rhythm and order. Everyone knows when to push, when to defer, and how the hierarchy generally works. That rhythm didn't survive Caitlin Clark's arrival, not because she disrupted it intentionally, and not because she came in trying to impose herself. It collapsed because everything on the floor began to orbit her decision-making. Drills felt heavier, like every rep suddenly mattered more. Possessions felt sharper and faster. Conversations stopped when she touched the ball, not out of obligation, but instinct. Coaches leaned forward without realizing they were doing it. Players paid closer attention, not wanting to miss a read or a cue. This wasn't manufactured hype or media-driven buzz. It was gravitational pull, the kind that only truly elite players generate simply by playing the game correctly at full speed with no wasted movement. Sabrina described it as Clark making the team in the truest sense of the phrase, not by being selected on a roster sheet, but by proving possession after possession that the game itself functioned better when it flowed through her. That's a difficult thing to witness if you're used to the game flowing through you. And by the final day of camp, that reality became impossible to ignore. Clark didn't coast. She didn't dial it back. She didn't blend in to make things comfortable. She dominated every aspect of the session, and according to those accounts, someone in that gym simply couldn't handle watching the hierarchy change in real time. Paige Bueckers was there for all of it, and according to multiple observers, she recognized what was happening almost immediately. When Clark ran the offense, the pace elevated across the board. Spacing tightened naturally. The ball moved faster and cleaner, hitting players exactly where they needed it. Players who had seemed slightly disconnected earlier in the week suddenly locked in as if the game had clarified itself. Coaches stopped observing casually and started taking real notes, adjusting details on the fly. This wasn't just another talented guard running sets efficiently. This was someone operating at a different processing speed. A player who sees the game one pass ahead and executes it without hesitation. Paige, as an elite competitor herself, understood that right away. She didn't resist it. She didn't compete with it. She recognized it, adapted, and elevated alongside it. That's what high-level basketball intelligence looks like when it meets another elite mind. Angel Reese, however, experienced something very different. For her, the shift wasn't energizing. It was disorienting. Not because she isn't talented or deserving of being there, but because the game was no longer centering itself around her strengths. The ball didn't find her in the same way. The rhythm of possessions didn't bend to her presence. The offense didn't slow down to accommodate individual moments. It moved past them. And over the course of the week, that reality became harder to ignore. That contrast is what made the environment so tense. Not overtly hostile, not dramatic, but uncomfortable in the quiet way that truth often is. Because when the game chooses its focal point, everyone else has to decide whether they're willing to adjust to that new reality. Some players recognize it and grow, others struggle with the loss of control. And that dynamic, more than any single drill or scrimmage, is what made this camp different from every other one before it. Top of form, bottom of form. At first, it wasn't anger. It was something more unsettling, irrelevance. Not because she couldn't play, not because she didn't belong, but because the game stopped flowing through her. The ball didn't find her in the same spots. The offense didn't bend toward her strengths. Possession after possession moved past her influence rather than through it. In huddles, in breakdowns, inside conversations between coaches, Clark was at the center, not because she demanded it, but because her impact made it unavoidable. Angel noticed the shift. Her body language reflected it. As the days went on, frustration built. She was running the same drills, playing the same minutes, getting similar opportunities, but the game had chosen a different focal point. The tension peaked during a closed scrimmage. No cameras, no crowd, just pride and competition. Clark ran point like a veteran who had been there for years. Paige spaced the floor perfectly. The ball moved with precision, every pass hitting its mark. The offense flowed effortlessly. Angel tried to assert herself physically, more contact, more emotion, but the game didn't slow down to accommodate that approach. It sped up, it got cleaner, and possession by possession, Angel faded from the rhythm, not because she was benched or sidelined, but because the tempo erased her influence. That was the moment the hierarchy became undeniable. This was no longer a competition between equals. It was a system revealing who it functioned best through. Coaches noticed. Assistants whispered. Notes were taken. Angel saw it all happening in real time. And that's when it hit. The game wasn't choosing her. Sabrina also pointed out something important about Clark's play specifically. The step-back threes were there. The impossible passes were there. But what stood out most was the precision. Clark doesn't just pass to open teammates. She delivers the ball to the exact spot where they can score most easily with perfect timing. Some bigs weren't ready for that. One player brought the ball down instead of keeping it high, and it disrupted the play instantly. That's not a mistake you make when you're prepared for elite facilitation. Clark demands readiness without saying a word. The camp also emphasized FIBA-level physicality, which is notably more forceful than the WNBA. Scout team players were instructed to play accordingly, and Clark didn't flinch. She absorbed contact, embraced the intensity, and continued to control the game. That alone answered any lingering questions about her toughness or adaptability. The final day of camp was eerily quiet. Execution was sharp. Clark directed traffic like a seasoned floor general, calling adjustments, finishing plays with confidence. Angel barely touched the ball in meaningful possessions, not as punishment, but as consequence. When the final whistle blew, everyone in the gym already knew what the answer was. Angel didn't wait for announcements. She didn't cause a scene. She simply left, and the gym froze. Coaches exchanged looks. Players avoided eye contact. Everyone understood what had just happened. This wasn't personal drama, and it wasn't about ego clashing behind the scenes. It was basketball revealing its truth in the most unforgiving way possible. When elite players share the same floor, the game itself decides what works, what doesn't, and who everything should flow through. No amount of reputation or past success can override that process. Angel Reese has been open about her dissatisfaction with her current WNBA situation and her desire for a different environment, one where she feels her strengths are fully utilized and her impact is central. That context matters because it helps explain why this camp hit differently for her. What unfolded at Team USA wasn't just another competitive setting. It was a space where there was nowhere to hide from reality. And the reality was that the focal point of the game wasn't up for debate. At camp, the offense didn't revolve around volume or visibility. It revolved around decision-making, timing, and control. The ball found Caitlin Clark because it made sense for it to find her. The pace followed her because the game moved more efficiently when she dictated it. That wasn't something coaches had to enforce or teammates had to agree on. It happened naturally, possession by possession, as the clearest path to winning basketball. That's the part that can be hardest to accept. Clark didn't demand the spotlight. She didn't call for the offense to run through her. She earned it every single session by making the right reads, delivering the ball on time, and elevating everyone around her. The game chose her because the game worked better when it did. At that level, there are only two options. You either adapt to the system the game establishes, finding new ways to impact, contributing within a different rhythm, or you decide that this environment isn't for you. There's no middle ground. There's no way to force the game to bend backward. Angel chose to walk away.